homesteading to prepping to common horse sense, we are College Hill Farm. Welcome back to College Hill Farm. Well, today we're doing a little welding project, and I'm going to talk about the best Homestead welder. Now, I've got a little welder that I bought for $99, shipping and all, off eBay about 8 years ago. It's called a flux core welder. First off, I am not a pro welder, number one. Number two, I learned to weld with a stick welder when I was 17 years old in Dad's garage. I've never had a class. Okay. Number three, I did work at a technical college. I was the director there, but I taught electricity, electronics, servo and non-servo, robotics, and physics, and hydraulics and pneumatics. So it wasn't like I taught welding. I am not a welder. My brother's a professional welder and his son's a professional welder. They do that for a living. But me, no, that's not me. But I spent $100 and bought what I consider the perfect Homestead welder. Because how often do I weld? Maybe once every 2 or 3 years. Okay, so I don't weld all the time. You probably don't need to weld all the time either. So let's talk about the little welder I have. Here's my little cheap old welder. It's only like 100 amps or something. It's not big. It's like $99 for the whole thing. It needs a 20 amp circuit. If you put it on a 15 amp circuit, it'll kick the breaker. It needs a 20 amp circuit. Very few settings that you have to fool with. It's the perfect welder to learn to stick stuff together. Now, I'm a stick it together kind of welder. I'm not a pretty welder. I just make it stick together. That's all I need. So let's have a look at how this welder works. Of course, it has this little handle, and when you press the handle, this wire feeds out. Oh, you got to turn it on. When you press the handle, this wire feeds out. Okay, and it's the wire that's used in place of a welding rod. Now, this wire, I call this a spatter welder because MIG welders use a shielding gas that goes around it blows out around this nozzle and keeps air from getting to it. Well, this has a flux core, or in other words, a core on the inside that creates a gas when this blows up. It creates a gas and keeps air from getting to the weld. Is it perfect? No. Does it spray little sparks of metal everywhere? Absolutely. So one of the important things is you got to wear eye protection and make sure that your boots, your pants are over the top of your boots. Don't have your pants like that, because inevitably hot metal will go down in the tongue of your boot. Put your pants over top of it. It'll save you a lot of heartache. Go out and spend some money on some good quality welding gloves. These are Lincoln Electric. They're good enough for what I need. They're not perfect. They're about 20 bucks for a good pair. Go out and buy you a good pair of welding gloves. It'll save your little fingers from burns and stuff. Don't go to the dollar store and buy those white mules. They'll burn through in a second. Next, the little welder will come with a welding helmet that you hold while you weld. Throw it in the garbage. Okay? Just throw it away. It's absolutely useless. Throw it out. Go and find you an auto darkening welding helmet. Okay? This is battery powered. It automatically darkens when you strike an arc. So you can see through this. And I don't know if you can see through it or not. That's what it looks like. You can see through that. But when you strike an arc, it automatically darkens like really dark sunglasses. And it saves you a lot of effort raising and lowering your hood. When I learned to weld, we just had hoods that you held it up like this. It was up there like that, and when you got ready to weld, you just shook your head and it fell down. Okay, but that meant you had to hold your hand still right where you were going to weld before you struck that arc and the helmet dropped. So buy you one of these auto darkening ones. You can get it for about $40. For under $200, you can get everything you need to be a Homestead welder. Okay, under $200. Now, I don't use this helmet maybe once a year. Okay, very seldom do I have to weld stuff, but every now and then I need to weld things. Now, don't expect, I know there are going to be some people on this this thing's going to say, well, you know, those welders are junk, they're Chinese crap, yada, 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 yada. You can't weld no time with them. Look, it's a $100 welder. It has a duty cycle of like 10 minutes out of every hour. Okay? Means you can weld for about 10 or 15 minutes out of every hour, and that's all. It's not a professional welder. It's a stick-it-together welder for homesteaders. It's the perfect welder for homesteaders. You can get this welder and learn real cheap. The number one thing you need to do is, instead of buying the little, instead of the wire that comes with it, you can use that to kind of try and learn. But after you've used up that first spool, don't buy no more of that cheap wire. Go and buy you some good Lincoln wire, or what's the other company? Doggone it, can't think of their name. But Lincoln or Hobart. Lincoln or Hobart. Go buy some Lincoln or Hobart wire and use that instead of the wire that came with your welder. It'll make life simpler. It's a lot better wire. It's a lot more consistent in its weld. Okay, this other wire is real inconsistent about how it arcs. So, you know, you can buy the cheap wire if you want to and be frustrated, or you can go buy the good wire. The difference is about $2 a roll, and that's not enough to worry about for the heartache. So, let's talk about the project we're going to do today. And I'm going to put a new set of batteries in this because I only use it ever so often. A new set of batteries every time means that you don't get arc in your eyes. It just uses AAA's and 2 of them, so it's not a big deal. Let's talk about our project. This set of cultivators, every time I go to hook them up, they fell over. Generally, I put a little piece of wood or something that sets on this, and when I set them down, it sets on that piece of wood. Well, inevitably, over the winter, those little pieces of wood wind up falling over, and when I go to use this thing, I have to go out, find the piece of wood, lift it up. Okay? I want to just be able to back up to it, pick up, and drive off. That's what I want to do. Well, in order to do that, I need a foot that's going to sit on the ground here to hold the front of this set of cultivators up. It's going to sit on the tines here just fine, but it'll sit on the tines, but I need something to hold the front end up so I can back my tractor up to it. Well, all I need is something that will hold it up. Well, when we bought this place, there's a ton of this old galvanized pipe. I know, I'm going to weld galvanized. I'll put a fan, okay? There's a thing, galvanized pipe has a coating on it of zinc, okay? Just so we're clear, it has a coating of zinc, and it can cause you to get sick welding galvanized pipe. It's called weld fever, okay? So it's a thing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay out of the smoke. I've got a little fan set up so it'll blow the smoke away from me, so I'm not too worried about it. And it's generally, you don't get the fever unless you're long-term exposure. I don't plan to be welding that long, okay? So what I want to do is I want to make a foot. Of course, this is too long and I'm going to have to go cut it off. But I want to make a foot that will hold this up on the front so that I can back my tractor up to it and then just pick up and drive off. Now the foot has to come off before I can use the cultivators, but that's okay. I'm going to fix it with just a bolt, so I can just take a nut loose and, okay? So I need this, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to cut this off. Now I could use a grinder to cut it off. I've got a bandsaw in here for metal, so I'm going to cut it off with a bandsaw. I've got neighbors. Grinders are loud. I'd cut it off with a grinder, but my neighbors are, it's before 8 o'clock in the morning. It's probably about 6:45, and I don't want to wake my neighbors up. Be a good neighbor. So I'm going to mark this, say about right there. Should be sufficient. That should be sufficient to give me, to hold it up for me to do that. Now, I'm going to use this end. It's got a T on it, but that T is going to be insufficient. That will eventually drive into the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of angle iron, 8 or 9 inches long. I'll cut me a piece of this off. This is just old angle iron I had laying around. I'm going to cut this piece of angle iron off and weld it on as a foot. And then I'll take on this upper end and weld a bolt on so that it can be just stuck in one of these holes here and a nut put on it, and it'll stay right where it was. Okay, so let's get in here and get some cutting done. Okay, here's my bandsaw. I know it's missing the cover. I see that. So for those safety folks out there, yeah, it's missing the cover. I bought the thing for $50. So, yeah, it's missing the cover. I need to put one on it. It wouldn't cost me nothing to put a cover on it, but I just haven't done it yet. So I keep my fingers away. Okay. Don't have to be too precise. Just has to be cut off. Now I've got a chop saw. I could just use a chop saw. I've got a great big old chop saw, but the truth is that chop saw is as loud as a grinder, so I don't want to disturb my neighbors. This little saw is not. So pull it up here, turn it on. And cut this off. Keep my fingers away from the blade. Yep. Again, it was a $50 saw. Don't expect it to be pro-grade. Close enough. Okay, there's that cut off. Okay. Okay, there we go. Got a foot. Let's go do some welding. Okay, here's our setup. I want to weld a bolt onto the end of that. Now what I've done is I've set up a little magnet that'll hold the bolt on there. Now there are some guys that could just take their welding gloves, hold that bolt on, hold that bolt right on there, weld it. I'm not one of those. I'm not that kind of dexterous. So I'll use the magnet to hold the bolt on. But you'll notice I've put nuts all the way up this bolt. This thing spatters. That's the nature of it. It's going to throw little pieces of metal all over the place. Little like droplets of metal. And I'll show you after I'm done. But anything that you don't want those little droplets of metal on, you better cover. Okay? So I've covered the threads up on this so that I don't have to worry about the threads getting all boogered up. Now they'll get some drops on these and I'll show them to you when we get at it. But let's go ahead and do a weld. Get it where I want it. to weld it, and that'll hold it still. Now I've got a little fan here. I'm just going to turn it on low, and what it'll do is any of that smoke that from the galvanized will blow away from me, and I don't have to worry about it. So, get my gloves. Everything's an adventure. Take my hat off. Turn my hood on. And now, let's see if we can strike an arc. I may have to adjust the wire feed level, or might have to adjust the power. Apparently my head's got bigger. Probably good enough. Now, I am a terrible welder. Okay? All I do is stick it together. I know I should beat off all the slag and all that stuff, but I'm not a welder. I'm a homesteader. That's not coming loose. That's all I care about. Okay? Now let's put the foot on. Well, don't want to hold in place. Put a C-clamp on it. See, that's what it's wanting to do. Alright, that'll hold that still till I get it tacked. Again, I'm a terrible welder, but it'll hold. That's all I care about. I don't care how it looks. I'm not doing this as a pro. Now, let's see if this works. Okay, here's what I was talking about the spatter. See this little thing that I use? See all that little metal spatters? Even here on the sides, it's you can see where they ran down by the paint here. If you don't want stuff to get spattered with that, you have to cover it. Okay, that's why I put the nuts on my project. Here's my finished little project. It's just a foot with a nut on top of a piece of steel bar. Are the welds ugly? Yeah, they're absolutely ugly. See? About as ugly as they can get. But the truth is, I don't care how pretty they are. I just want it to stick together. And I've never welded on a galvanized pipe before. It caused my welder to start and stop a little more than I'm used to. So I don't care. I stuck it in there, made it penetrate, and got it to stick together. That's all I care about. Now, the moment of truth is, does it work? So let's put the project on the tractor and see if it works. I would call that a success. Freestanding, not connected to the quick hitch. So then all I have to do is back up, reattach my quick hitch, pick it up, take one bolt loose and get that foot out of the way, and I'm ready to go. That is a winner. And so's my little welder. That's an 8-year review of that thing. I paid $99 for it on eBay delivered. You can still buy them today. Put in Stark Welder for $107 delivered to your house. Okay? Now if you like this kind of stuff, this homestead and do-it-yourself kind of thing, be certain to come on out to the channel and subscribe. We do this homestead stuff every week, sometimes 1, sometimes 5 videos. Just depends on what's going on in the homestead that week. If you hit the little bell when you come to the channel, it'll notify you when we upload a video, and we upload every Sunday. Now, with that being said, it's time for me to get on to the next thing.